The show where there are no penalties, nothing is offside, and everything is fair game. This is The Gloves Are Off.
Welcome to this week's edition of The Gloves Are Off. I'm Moses Woldu, and it's going to be playoffs, and more playoffs, swearing, and then more playoffs. Of course, talking about Masai Ujiri, who we will get to in a moment. But first, I got to get to my fine guests. No, that is not Greg Buchanan, who has had a makeover. That's Nahreman Issa here with Buchanan.
That'd be some makeup artist, though, hey?
Oh, well, yeah.
I thought when you
no
were,
kidding.
I thought when you say about swearing and more swearing, I'm like, I promise I won't swear.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. Well, depends who we talk to or talk about. Duncan Keith, not so much. But this guy, consummate professional, of course, talking about Taylor Dyer. You are the head coach for the men's volleyball team here at Lakeland College. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. See, man, a few words, but he gets to the point.
I'll fill up for his words. Don't worry.
It's like, let's go. All right. Well, we'll start it off. Why not? Talk about Columbus. I've fallen in love with this team. I really do like the way they play. I think when you try to build a team from the ground up, from the management level, everywhere else, they've got it done. And the structure in the playoffs, boy, oh boy, going up 2-0 early in the second, up 3-1, then all of us are up 2-1, make it 3-1. And then you give up goals to Brendan Sutter, Olimata, and Lee Stepniak on 3 consecutive shots in a little over 2 minutes. All of a sudden, this series has turned on its head, and it's gone in favor of the Penguins. Do you see this as more so a at-fault issue for Columbus, saying they lost this game, or do you give credit to Pittsburgh for coming back the way they did?
But it works both ways, right? It's either a great comeback or an epic collapse.
But who get more of favor? What do you call this? If you look at this game,
Pittsburgh.
You say Pittsburgh's comeback is a lot more than, say, Columbus collapse.
Everyone loves a Cinderella team, and I want Columbus to be a Cinderella team, right? But Pittsburgh has been here before. They've been to the big dance before. They know that. And they've got the stars, right? Well, you can name how many different stars on Penguins, and then when you go to the Blue Jackets, you're like, ooh, you know? So they're trained for this. They understand that when they're down and out, this is the time where you pull out your big guns, which is funny, though, because it wasn't the big guns to get them right back into it. But you can't really call it an epic collapse for the Blue Jackets, seeing how
I would call it that. I'm saying that because when you only put 20 shots, single-digit shots per period, really, on Marc-Andre Fleury, who wasn't really tested for the exception of the first opening, say, 10 minutes of the game, he allowed 3 goals. He was a little soft. I don't know what you said.
I think Columbus is way too complacent. I think they got the lead, and then it was just them trying to hold on. And in playoff hockey, you can't do that, especially against a team like Pittsburgh. You just can't. And I think it was completely Columbus's collapse that was the big story in that game. And you know what? Everyone's starting to fall in love with this team. The way they play, they're fast. They play playoff hockey, and they're not going to give you an inch. But then what happened in that third period, I think that was what they did. They stopped what got them to that point in the game, and that was the result.
I think the real true rule is don't score first, you end up losing the game in that series.
The thing is, though, it is an epic collapse with 3 goals in like 4 minutes, right? But
you're giving up those shots, and the shots they had, although I will say the bad break when it went off James Wisniewski and in, that didn't help out either. So favor goes to Pittsburgh, but I will say this, guys. You have you mentioned that talking about stars. Yeah. Crosby and Malkin are the 2 biggest stars you can get in the NHL. They both play on Pittsburgh, and they've done nada virtually in this series. No goals, and the record is now 2-5 in the last 7 playoff games, including the conference finals, when it comes to their record with these guys with big goose eggs under that G column. Do you see this team being successful throughout, not necessarily getting past this first round? I'm talking about, well, you know what? Instead, yes, I am talking about this first round. I'm not talking about the entire playoffs. Can they get past Columbus if those guys don't score?
I'm just upset because I have Sidney Crosby and Kunitz in my playoff pool, and they are doing 0 for me.
And I have Malkin, so.
Yeah, there you go. And you know what, though? It sucks because I do want Columbus to take out Pittsburgh, but then I look at my pool and I'm like, oh, man. But the thing is, though, you look at something, you can either give credit to Columbus saying, hey, look, you're shutting down their top players, or you can look at Pittsburgh and be like, hey, you're getting scoring from all 4 lines, which in the playoffs, you need your stars to stand up. You need them to start producing. But it's got to be nice that you are up 2-1 in your series and your top players have done 0. Neal, Malkin, Kunitz, and Crosby. I don't think any of them have a goal yet. And it's been 3 games.
I think you give credit to Columbus for shutting down that line, but again, you look at the Boston Bruins, I don't think they had a guy in the top 25 in scoring this year and one of the best teams in hockey. I think especially when it comes to playoff time, you got to have all 4 lines rolling and you got to be able to get production from everywhere because those are the teams that are going to last and the team that's going to make it to the end.
All right, we'll move on to another playoff series that has a lot of physicality towards it. I'm talking about St. Louis and the Blackhawks. Of course, late in the game, we know that the Hawks won to make this one interesting, considering that they lost games 1 and 2, in my opinion. They shouldn't have gone that far, but it was because of stupid penalties and stupid hits, courtesy of Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, who suffered a 3-game suspension as a result on Bacchus. But of course, there's a lot of trash talk and a lot of hatred towards Duncan Keith for his, stick work for one, and 2, trash talking David Bacchus after suffering a vicious hit. Steve Ott decided to take things under his own steam and nail, which looked like illegal. It looked legal. Like it was more so of a shoulder hit, and the referee issued it, even though Duncan Keith thought it was more so by the numbers. But do you see Duncan Keith's role as a guy who's crying too much foul now because of a couple measly hits, even though that he deserves all what's coming to him, right?
Yeah, he's crying about nothing. It's playoff hockey. If you're going to play the way he's been playing, you got to expect to get something in return. Like that's just the way it works in the NHL and in playoff hockey. It's gritty. It's like they've been letting things go like crazy. So yeah, he can't come in and start complaining after things that he's been doing, and then to get it back himself. That's just not how it works.
I'm a big fan of Duncan Keith. I'm part of the fan club. I will let something slide. Yeah, a lot of people are upset with the whole wakey thing, and that was inappropriate. But you also have to understand that things are said on the ice in the heat of the moment. We've all done that.
But
We've all said
some
some stupid
who
things.
Suffered a
But
massive hit.
yes,
You
I
trash
know.
talk people. I
But
get it.
they
But
have
a guy
a huge.
who's literally doesn't even know where he is. Probably doesn't even know his name at that point. Do you really think that's a smart thing? The guy's already down.
It's dumb. Trash talking like that's dumb. I know, like, as an Oiler fan, I got very upset when Zach Kassian did the whole, what's this to, Sam Gagner. But I think the different situation is he did that to him. But I understand it was horrible trash talking. I know stupid things are said, and no one technically really apologized because no one really owed up to it. When they asked Duncan Keith, he kind of skirted around the issue, but that's just what it is. You see that his stick work, like you mentioned, he's always off the face-off circle.
Tarasenko
He's
and
just, hacking away, but that's just what playoff hockey unfortunately has come to. And the Blues and the Blackhawks, they have a huge rivalry in the same, division, and the fact that they're 2 top teams going up against each other, and you're down to nothing. Like Chicago, this is like new to them.
It's hard playoff hockey. And I mean, just because you heard that, you don't know all the other things being said throughout a game.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that happens on that ice, I can't even imagine to start to think about what's been being said and what guys are whispering each other's ears and stuff as the game goes on. And he just got caught because the camera heard it. But I bet that it goes on all the time on the ice. And
The Blues probably
so
said something.
it is what it is. It's playoff hockey again. It's emotions running high. And they want to win. So
I found it funny when he was complaining to the ref about that, and then the St. Louis Blues had a nice little chuckle on their bench. But Chicago had the last laugh.
That's what
with
leaders
2-1
do,
win.
right?
We're going to have to actually take a quick break here. When we return, we're going to still talk about more playoff hockey, including a big win for the Minnesota Wild in overtime.